Hey everyone, and welcome back to Master Your Life Beyond the Founder. I'm your podcast host, Luke Beastall, and I have an amazing guest with us all the way from the other side of the world, Australia, Brisbane specifically. And she has got a message that she is so passionate about sharing today. Pain to purpose. So obviously you're probably thinking, where's this come from? Which we are going to delve into her story. She actually calls herself the Illuminator. She helps people go from a wound to wisdom and be able to build a 6 or even a 7-figure profitable business, which I know you're probably sat here going, how does that even happen? Is that even possible? Well, I'm here to say, and I know she is here to say quite confidently, it is possible. So Samantha, look, I'm going to let you elaborate and expand. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation.
I know it's. I mean, just to put it out there, obviously we did have a bit of a technical issue, didn't we? First time round, we gave it a go, and we couldn't quite get there, but we're here again, and we're all good now.
We are third time lucky. Yeah.
I know, literally. So just for our audience to check in, because obviously I know this is going to be a fantastic episode. Tell people a little bit more about the Illuminator and what it is that you specifically do now, based on your experience.
Yeah, I would say that the first 20 something, 22 years of my life were filled with a lot of darkness, like trauma, abuse, identity confusion, not really knowing even where I belonged. Just for context to everybody listening, I grew up in this little country town in New South Wales in Australia. So my mum and dads were farmers. And yet when I was really, really young, all I thought about was literally changing the world. And I would just be like a little kid and everybody else was playing. And I was like, I wanted to have these deep philosophical questions. And so for the first 20 something years of my life, I really didn't know where I belonged. I felt like I didn't belong in my town. And yet I had this kind of tension that existed inside of me about who am I and where do I belong and why do I have these big dreams and aspirations? And that created a lot of darkness for me because I didn't really feel validated in that. I didn't really feel that there was like-minded people around me. And it was only by the time I was 22 years old that I really began to understand what that was and then really discover my true identity. But it really took building a multi-8-figure company, having $1 million property portfolio and doing everything that the people around me were doing and then feeling a sense of a lack of fulfillment inside for me to go, I've played by the world's rules and by that white picket fence kind of vision, but that isn't really who I am. And so for the next probably 5 years, I traveled around the world. I learned from the leading authorities in neuroscience and shamanism and entrepreneurship and really discovered who I was. And that meant I needed to leave my small town behind and I had to really find like-minded people and recognize that those visions that existed inside of me to change the world, they were real. And so what came out of that is this word, the Illuminator, which was my gift, my identity, which is my ability to really see into the potential of people and illuminate that potential, especially if they've been through pain and traumas. I help them to understand why that wound existed and help them to integrate that wound into wisdom and then to be the way shower, the trailblazer, the person that really leads other people through that transformation too.
Well, I mean, just to sort of share that context is amazing. Thank you for that. And I think it just gives inspiration to even people already, just to say that, you was living on a farm. Obviously, I'm taking it that your parents have lived a very, very different life to yourself. You've gone out of, this, I guess, enclosed environment to sort of going out to the world and being seen and having more visibility. And it's just sort of one thing's led to another. However, you've openly said that 22 years was probably not the place that you've truly wanted to be. And you've had to go through these years of maybe collecting the wounds and finding paths that you may think was right and not right. So, I mean, that in itself is commendable because I think a lot of people wouldn't even try. So for you, I'd love to know, when you was a little girl, where did this sort of, where did it come from for you to go, I just want to change the world. I want to, give back to people.
Yeah, it was just, it felt that that was like the core essence of who I am. I have no idea how to explain. It's like that's just what brought me alive, right? I think that my dad was very entrepreneurial. I saw him always a hard worker. And you know, I always saw like my family, they had 100-year farming family legacy. So I guess I always just believed that like anything was possible. And they started from nothing and turned it into something. And so I think that I obviously was surrounded by people like that, but like inherently inside of me, it's just like the other things didn't make me happy. And so I would just have these natural dreams and aspirations and watching public figures like Oprah and different people, and they would speak on stage. And I just loved the idea that they made people feel good. And so it started for me in primary school. I put my hand up and I was like, I want to be school captain. I want to like have a stage and get the mic. And I didn't at all feel capable, but I was just like, that's bringing me alive. So it was like I was just very in touch with my spirit at a very young age. For some reason, I would often walk around the farm and literally just like connect to nature, and I would just feel this presence of God at a very young age. And it was just like I was just able to follow, that's what's bringing me alive, and I trusted it enough to just keep following it.
This is so good. So well done. And the fact that, you know, it's obviously, you've openly said, don't know exactly, can't pinpoint what it was. It was just in you. You know, it's like a lot of
Yeah.
people have that sort of potential maybe that they've forgot about later on in life. Maybe it was there and then it's gone, but it, or they've dimmed it. Maybe society's dimmed it. Their friends have dimmed it. For you, if you was to look at, obviously, you know, you've been around the environment. You've just said there. Obviously, your father's very entrepreneurial. Is you know, you've had 100-year legacy. That's amazing. So it's that generations coming through that's allowed that path to sort of grow, or you could be on that path. Was there a moment in your like growing up phase that, did your dad ever sort of want you to be on the farm and carry the legacy on, or was he just totally supportive of you going out to see the world and stuff like that?
Yeah, no, I never felt that family pressure, like, to take on the farm. He always, like, would definitely have loved for one of us children to do it, but I never felt that. I think that my parents just always celebrated my hardworking nature. At 14 years old, I went to a bakery and I started my first job. I felt this drive, felt this ambition, and they were just always like really encouraging and supportive of that. And so I started that, and again, that was just like this spirit. And I think many of us listening, we've got that, right? But there's like people, places, environments that naturally like suppress that. And so every time I did choose that, I was just thankful that my parents like really encouraged it instead.
But that in itself is really great. The fact that you've had that support, you know, that backing to be able to go after and follow whatever you feels right. So just I love that bit there where you said at 14, you know, you had
Yeah.
your first job. I mean, obviously in today's world, people probably don't even go anywhere near earning any sort of money, or putting themselves out there even at such an early age. Tell
Yeah.
us a bit about that and what happened from that experience of having a job at such a young age.
I was quite a sensitive child, and I'm a very sensitive like human. So I feel sometimes things, like burdens put on my heart. And so I remember at this point of being 14, like I felt the burden of like seeing people fitting into society's mold. And so I had this dream and vision to start a clothing and jewelry business because I wanted people to have the freedom to be themselves, to express themselves without the fear of rejection or judgment. So I went in and I started at this bakery working 20 hours a week. And then I had enough money to buy jewelry and clothing from Bali for $3, sell it for $30 or more. My mum would then take me around to the markets and I would have a shipping container, and I was just like, I would just figure it out. And so I think that what that taught me, and I think the takeaway is like if something's in the world is breaking your heart, if you're feeling a burden, for example, you've got this amazing Run Free collective I saw that you're
Yeah.
doing. And I was like, that's a classic. It's like isolation, people struggling to connect with others, and you felt that obviously burden on your heart, and it makes you show up because you're not in it for money or self gain. It's literally like you're feeling a burden. You have the eyes to see something that others don't. And therefore, as the leader, you are going to give above and beyond, right? And then people are going to feel it. And then it just absolutely grows. And that's what happened for me. Like at 14, I was sensitive enough to feel that burden. And so then I just kind of, I made a way, found it, and then it just made it happen.
Yeah, yeah. This is great. I'm loving this piece because obviously you're talking about that freedom of like, look, you know, if something's inside of you or you've got an itch, we like to call it like an itch that you want to scratch, just go out and do it, but with the feeling of like no expectation of return. I'd love to hear from sort of your obviously perspective now and where you are. Obviously, some people will say they'd probably go, "Oh, I regret it." You know, at 15, I was doing because like back in our day at school, people would have sweets, right? They'd have a little tuck shop at school, and that's where they'd make their money and stuff like that. Where you were saying with jewelry, it'd be with sweets and stuff. But maybe they're at the life now, and people listening in will go, "I can't really do that. My hands are a bit tied because I've got a mortgage, I've got responsibility, I've got kids, but I have got this passion." You know, there is still something that I want to do, but I'm scared because I'm fearing that I haven't got the time, I haven't got the money. If you was to sort of sit opposite them, you know, having a coffee or going on a walk, what would
Yeah.
you? And I know there's so much to say and understand, but what would you say to them as one thing that they could sort of ingrain in them to go away in action?
I believe it's like that, like we are all called to something, and we are not given the clarity, confidence, certainty, provision, time, money until we give God our yes. And so you have to first decide that you fully want that and commit. And as soon as you give God your yes, that is when energy will increase. Like, even if you're tired and you're like, I don't have enough time, I'm exhausted, I've got a family, I've got this job. It's like, as soon as you literally say yes, your energy will increase. As soon as you commit fully to it, like, okay, I'll just hire this mentor, or I'll just commit, I'll set the date for the program, or I'll just do this event. It's like, money, opportunities, clients, everything will come on the other side of that commitment. And so if you're waiting for more clarity, confident provision, time, even energy, it doesn't happen beforehand. It happens after you give God the yes. I'm a very spiritual person. I'm like God led. So I'm obviously sharing it in that context. But the truth is that every single person who has created whatever it is that you want, they didn't feel a certain way before they did it. And they definitely didn't wait for certain circumstances. They decided, made the commitment, and then they were equipped along the way. You become the person along the way. The fact that you have that vision and calling and that passion that exists inside of you is because there's a future version of you who already did it, right? It's like not anyone else has that passion. Not anyone else has the eyes to see that thing. And so, I believe like God planted that in your heart for a time, this very time. And the fact that it's right, the fact that you have the desire, the fact that it's like coming out is because you're actually ready right now. But the only way that you see you're ready is when you actually step forward. Like, I didn't believe I was going to be a very good speaker until I was about to get on stage, so nervous, going bright red, having panic attacks. Why am I here? I don't want to speak. I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. I get on stage. I just tell the audience like I'm overwhelmed. And then 5 to 10 minutes later, this whole power, this whole confidence, like I didn't know that it was there, but I had to get on the stage. And then I was like, holy, what? And then I became a more confident speaker by simply being on the stage and seeing what God had already formed inside of me, all the moments up until that very stage.
Oh, honestly, Samantha, thank you for sharing that, and also placing your sort of experiences in there as well, because you know it's very easy to sort of tell and put out a show, but actually to share an experience obviously shows that you've been through it, and you still go through it today. But the fact that you just
Yeah,
said there that things sort of start to like come up for you once you've made that commitment, allowed
yeah,
permission to yourself, yes. Yes, I totally agree. I think the no is obviously the negative energy, and you
yeah,
know you've sort of got the yes to sort of give yourself that uplift and go after it. So I think anyone sort
yeah,
of listening in or tuning into this piece of the episode, I would definitely probably go back about 90 seconds and just let this play out again and again and again, because I just think that was so great, such an insight that I think people will remember.
yeah. Yeah, it is so important, I think, because like I would give for everybody this prompt. It's like if you were no longer a slave to fear, what would you be and what would you do? Like if you were no longer a slave to fear at all, fear of not enough money, time, energy, confidence, like, because like that's the truth of who you are. And a lot of us, we partner with fear, but it's like we don't actually have to partner with fear at all. We don't have to entertain it. We don't need to keep partnering with fear to be relatable. Like a lot of us, we think that fear has to be a part of our reality. But if like that's my current thing is like, okay, Sam, if you're not a slave to fear anymore, then what do you choose today? And it's a crazy, or like, what would be the vision of your life the next 6 months? Like if I literally chose to no longer partner with fear, it's a crazy prompt to just reflect on.
Yeah, yeah. What
Yeah.
what work that this is great. What work have you had to do on yourself though to be at this
Mm.
stage?
Oh, so much. Like I've invested $500,000. I like 2 to 4 hours a day for like the last 10 years. I think a lot of people underestimate the level of development that you have to go through. Like the vision is easy, building a business is easy, becoming the person able is the toughest part. Like being able to have emotional intelligence, to hold duality of like the uncertainty, the confusion, the doubt, and then realign your thoughts, really not feel in the mood, not feel excited by something, but to keep taking action. But I think that, Gary Vee said the quickest way to change your life is to change your inner circle. And so the best thing to do is to literally, I had to move towns, I had to move cities, I had to move countries at some point. I had to get so far away from the familiar, and I had to surround myself with other people that thought differently, that thought so big and expansive, that helped me to see that they were proof. Right? And so, whatever the dream or vision you have that you imagine that is planted inside of you, go around somebody who's already done that. They're your proof, right? And then you'll start to see how they think. You'll start to see the standards that they're holding for themselves. And then you'll see a gap, which can be really uncomfortable because you're seeing this gap of where you hold excuses or limits. And then, for me, I used to think I needed a sales page and all these things. Now I get an idea for an event. That day, I just start promoting it. I sell tickets before anything is done, right? It's but that was just a behavior. Whereas I used to go, no, I need to feel really certain, confident. I need to plan things 3 to 6 months into the future. I got in a new circle. I studied how they thought, and then I adopted that. And that was the quickest way my life actually really changed.
Yeah, so I think there's a lesson here for a lot of people listening, and what I've taken away is just the fact that we can over plan, we can over systemize, we can try and have all the sort of things that probably people tell us that we need, first,
Yeah.
perfection before actually just going and actioning it. Obviously, it's very clear to see, and obviously, I've followed your work, and I can see that you're putting it out, you're signaling to the world, right? It's like boom, shots going. Let's try this, bang, bang, bang. No fear, just hey, this is it. I know this is going to do the thing it wants to do,
Yeah.
but just let me put
Mm.
it out to the world, right? And see
Yeah.
what's happening, what's coming. It's not going to all be a success. It's not always going to be perfect in the way you want it to be, but you're still doing it. I mean, you said about that,
Mm.
about obviously I can see you never give up. What
Mm.
what do you think if you look upon hindsight and reflection, what do you
Mm.
think has been the one thing that's pushed you past that barrier of fear of not giving up? Because I'm sure there's been many times that you've wanted to give up.
So many times I've wanted to give up. Like I've struggled with suicide at many points in my journey. And so I think that because I've struggled with suicide, I've lived the version of me that was small, that shrunk. I often say, there's either a feather, a brick, or a bus. It's like if you don't respond to God's calling, first God will give you a feather. That's like anxiety, depression, just not feeling fulfilled. And then if you still don't listen, it's like, then there's a brick. It's like, okay, I'm losing money, the relationship's breaking down. And then if you don't respond, then there's like a cancer scare, bankruptcy. So I live with a fear of not living true to the calling God's got on my life because I know I'm going to pay the cost, like emotionally, mentally, physically, right? I've lived that. I've lived in suicide. I've lived with those consequences. So I think because I have lived that, I know what it's like to not be responding to God's calling. I never want to go back to that place. Like, I know that whilst it can bring up doubts and fears and uncertainties, to choose hard and moving towards my potential and growing and being more fulfilled is better than the hard of living in a life that I know isn't me, where I'm stuck comparing and I'm feeling not good about myself. So I think it's like they often say, like, choose your hard. And I believe that that's really, really relevant. But like the truth is sometimes we even numb ourselves off to like when we're like, I've even disassociated with the consequences of me not responding to that calling. You know, we're like, oh, life's not too bad. It's like we're in this in between. And it's like, well, the brick or the bus is on its way. You know, like I do believe a brick or a bus is going to come wake you up at some point, because like I've experienced that in my own life.
I think you've got an absolute abundance of wisdom with the sort of distinctions and the sort of analogies you share. So no, that's really good. I mean, if you're okay to share this, Samantha, I just want to know
Yeah.
what brought you to feeling that you don't want to be here anymore and the suicide part.
Mm. I think it's been different points. Like, so when I was quite young, I had suicidal feelings. It was when I was 22 that I did an NLP breakthrough, and I remembered that I'd been sexually abused as a young girl. And so I think that a lot of the darkness that I went through in those first 22 years was like feeling this shame inside of me and not knowing why I felt this shame and this grief and this darkness. And so at 22, I remembered that, and I realized that, like, you know, like my trust had been broken in literally the first few years of being alive. And so when when that pain was shown, I was like, well, God, why did you give me this pain? Why did I have this experience? And it's like God just showed me my heart and was like, even though the worst happened to you, like your heart remained pure. And this is why, like, and this is, you had to go through that experience of that pain to, it's developed your heart for people, your love, your compassion, your empathy. And then it was like, and so like that was a huge insight for me, where I just, if you've ever been somebody who's felt this, like you're carrying a heaviness that you don't understand what it is, a lot of that time that's trauma or it's abuse, and you won't remember those experiences until you're ready to actually process them. So it was that, like, carrying all of this stuff that it just wouldn't go away. And I was like, why are other people more happy and light, but I'm not? And I would often escape with drugs, abuse, promiscuity, because I needed to numb. I wasn't taught emotional regulation. I wasn't taught it. So I was carrying all this stuff that I didn't even understand. And that was the start of therapy. But then later on in life, you know, I think the suicidal came where I I just didn't, for most of my life, I didn't believe that I was going to make it past 30. There was just, and it's often a really crazy thing when I tell people that. They're like, what
Yeah.
do you mean? But just like, there were just so many aspects to this human experience that felt overwhelming for me. And, you know, later on in life, like when just recently, I came out of another suicidal period. And when I went through this suicidal period, I had an ovarian cancer scare. And through that ovarian cancer scare, I discovered that I have autism and ADHD. And so I guess a lot more of my life made sense then. They say that autistic women are 9 times more likely to commit suicide. And I really understand why, because it's like when you have autism and these tendencies, you're often masking like a lot of the human normal things you struggle with. You struggle with social confidence. You struggle with, like, I've been rejected so many times in my life. You know, people will see me and they'll see me, and based on my appearance, they'll think I'm one type of woman. And then I open my mouth and I'm very direct. I'm very opinionated. I've lobbied things in government. I stand up for social injustices. I have a lot of information. Yeah, I've got a big voice. It's why I wrote one of my books, Stand Up, Speak Up, and that's come with a lot of rejection. And so I, spent the first 20 years of my life in a community where there wasn't really like-minded people, where I was getting rejected so much. It says that ADHD people, autistic people go through 20,000 criticisms by the age of so early on in life. When I was a little girl, I would sit at the table and I'd want to share things, big ideas, and like people would reject me a lot. And so I learned very early on, like, it's not safe to be myself. And when you've carried that for like 20 something years, until you find your people, you know who you are, you know your purpose, that can be a lot to carry. And so I think when I recently got that autistic and ADHD, label, it was so freeing, because I was like, oh, and I've been gently releasing the mask and just being okay with like being a bit socially awkward, being super direct. Sometimes I don't even have a conversation. I'm just so direct, and I don't mean to be, but that can offend people. And but I'm also quite, there's so much range to me, with ADHD. I'll just come in and I'm like going a million miles an hour and then not. And so I think, there was a greater level of self-understanding that came with that, that helped me to just move through that last layer of this suicidal thing of feeling a little bit like, is it safe to be me? And I think that a lot of people that have gone through autism and ADHD, they struggle with that.
Yes, they do. I know that because there is people who actually listen to the show that have got ADHD and autism both together. These clients that I work with as well. So, by the way, just I commend. Again, I know I said I commend you, but the way that you carry yourself, I think, just like this is why I love these sort of podcasts, because I'm not trying to be judgy here, but just seeing from what we see online, right? Your profile, you seem very boom, like out there, very direct, like you say. But what you're sharing here is probably what people would not in the slightest ever think that that's something that you're carrying even day to day, right? ADHD and autism, but you're still able to manage and find a way through, but also to share so vulnerably about. I mean, I know that you shared about the ovarian cancer. By the way, just is everything okay with that now? Has that all
Yeah.
been okay?
Yeah, I was in hospital a month ago, but then they just, they cleared some different things, and so I've just kind of got to manage the pain with that. But everything's all
Okay.
clear from the cancer perspective, which is good. Thank goodness.
Yeah, well, I'm glad. So
Yeah.
just to go on to this, what we said right at the beginning, actually, the pain to purpose. So you've had the pain of suicidal thoughts, you've had the pain of ovarian cancer, you've had the pain of sexual abuse through your childhood. How have you then, or who have you had to become to transition that to purpose?
Yeah, so I think I had to realize, like, who did I become because of all of that? And I became a woman who like values compassion, empathy. I've got a sensitive heart, so I care about philanthropic causes in the world. And I realized, like, it developed a sense of character in me. It developed my heart. And when you have the right character and heart alongside the skills, then you're equipped for a direct calling. And so right now, like, it's helped me to, right now I help a lot of women that have been through these different experiences that don't believe that they can actually handle success. They can't handle the visibility. So for them to be able to have real conversations with a woman who had to work through all those issues, because when you are more visible, sexual abuse trauma can come up, autism, ADHD, like it all comes up. And so there's one thing, for somebody to give you a framework for visibility, but it's another for somebody to be like, hey, I've been there. Like, I see you. And if I can be the proof for you to actually be able to get through it. So right now I'm working on the Illuminator, which is a 6-month experience for women. And it's calling other women that have been through similar experiences and men. And it's kind of like sponsor a child, but sponsor an entrepreneur. So every single woman or man that's in the program, they're actually going to fund a woman in a developing country to get access to high income skills and to be able to break that poverty cycle. And so I think you want to always see your trauma like when you get on the other side of it, it may then free 100 or thousands or millions of others because you become the proof, and you being the proof gives somebody else hope that they can get through it too. That's sometimes all we need. We don't see anybody like us, anybody with the same story, and so we don't have hope. But suddenly when you see somebody get through the other side, you're like, okay, look, I've got one person. I've got hope. And then it gives you that resilience to keep going through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations. Again, you're bringing a space, you're bringing an environment together. You said about your inner circle earlier on in this episode, and you're being able to create that, through sharing and being visible and putting yourself out there and being living proof that, hey, listen, this is, what I've been through, and I'm now here to sort of bring you in my circle and let us all come together and, I guess, beat this trauma, or work with it and still move forwards in life and not let it hold us back and weigh on us heavy for the rest. And I think, for you to be able to shift that into a purpose is actually amazing, because I know so many, and I'm sure people even listening will be like, how did you move past that? Because it's still holding me back. I'm not letting go. It's defining me, who I am now, because I can't beat past it. Like for you, you've been through so much. What what keeps you moving? What keeps you going forwards and continuing to give to yourself as well?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question. Yeah, it's such a good question. I feel like you really need to like for me, it's all about God. It's having that close relationship with God and being able to sit with God each and every single day. And I feel like you get so much energy from that. And no matter if that's like, if God for you is like the gym or nature or it's church or whatever it is, it's like when you're close to God, like God feeds you. God feeds you enthusiasm and energy and drive and ambition and visions. And then when you start serving from that energy and from that overflow, like when you start serving others, you get so much energy. You get purpose. You get a fire that lights inside of you. And so if you're like, damn, like I want to have more of this, well then start serving others. Don't focus on your own limits, your own fears, your own beliefs. Oh, am I enough? Do I have enough money to do this? Like take the focus off yourself and then put it on serving, and notice how you light up when you're serving others. Notice how you have more meaning. And in whatever way that is, if it's just walking through your streets and like smiling at others, or it's going and volunteering somewhere, or it's like realizing, you know what, this episode has taught me that I'm never going to feel different. I just simply have to decide and move differently, then move differently. Commit to the thing that feels so out of reach. There's this scripture that talks about like God has something for us beyond what we can see, think, or imagine. My life right now is 10 times beyond whatever I thought or saw or imagined for me. I just thought I was always going to be living in like Wagga and having some bigger dreams and that like, and so you will notice that your mental health will improve by serving others. Your mental health will improve by hitting the gym like twice more than what you think, right? When you start living and being somebody beyond what you see, think, or imagine for yourself, that's when all that untapped potential that exists inside of you will start to come online. So I think get close to God, and then once you are close to God, then start serving. Make it about others, not yourself, and just watch what happens to your energy, because you're going to get so much more energy.
Yes, 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 yes. So obviously, God is the core for you, where you meet every single day, you invest that time and energy that gets you charged up. Then obviously that allows you to give to others your best self. And I guess it's that continuous work. I think this is what a lot of people probably are not thinking or so great at, is that consistency, of just showing up and giving and serving. I mean,
Mm,
for you now, where you are,
mm,
how long have you been on this journey of serving?
mm.
Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, so I started like at 14, but then at 19 I took over my family's property development. So I'd say from 19 properly. um yeah, like yeah, I think yeah, it's quite a long time because I'm 33 now. I'm turning 34 in July, so close to 20 years now. 20 years of serving.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
this, okay, so this is amazing. So that's a good chunk of time. And if you was to sort of extract sort of a game changer moment from this time of serving, what's something that you have taken away from all of this that you would love to share to our audience?
To every single person listening, there is somebody praying for you. Like, I believe that each and every single one of us are unique and different in our own way. We carry an energy, a presence, a story, a level of impact we can have on people that no one else can have. And so I deeply believe that, like, there are people praying for Luke, there are people praying for me, and that if I don't show up, like, those people won't get the experience that I was uniquely assigned to give them. And so for me, like, I know this is like borderline martyr and like rescuer, like people talk about that, but like for me, it's like, it's about recognizing that you are somebody of worth. Your presence has value, your story has value. And when you start to see that you are a person of value, you're a key person of influence. There's nobody on this planet like you, right? You matter so deeply. And right, and you understand that you matter like that. You understand the worth of that when you build a relationship with God. And when you build a relationship with God, you start to see yourself through the eyes of how God sees you, right? And when you start to see yourself in that way, suddenly you feel a little bit more confident at the coffee shop to say hello. Suddenly you trust that little nudge to say hello to that person that's a little bit down in the corner. Suddenly, when there's this nudge to, like, share a bit of your story, you do that day. That's serving. Serving isn't like, oh, I need to help millions of people. Serving is recognizing that you're here to do God's work, right? And God's work for that day may be seeing that guy over there that looks like he's like a little bit down, seeing how he is, realizing that you needed to share your own story of something, and that brightened his day. That put him on his path, right? And so I hope every single person here knows that you matter, your presence matters, and every single day you get to impact as many people as you like. And like, I believe that you will be assigned to those people. One of the things, like when I was a little girl, I was in high school, and when I was there, I was absolutely wagging school. I was like one of the worst kids like in high school. And I remember this like really pivotal moment when this teacher dragged me out of the room and literally just said to me, like, this isn't who you are. And I was like, I don't know if you've ever like been playing out being somebody less than your potential, and then somebody else literally comes through and reminds you who you are, calls you forward. And so as soon as I had that experience, I ran back to my mom and dad that day, and I was like, okay, mom and dad, like, you need to take me to boarding school. And it was like such a big catalyst for me being in a boarding school, being in the right environment. In 18 months, like, I became in the top 6% of Australia because I was simply in the right environment. And so that was a huge catalyst for me, because I think that when you take enough action in alignment with who you truly are, more self respect, more self worth, more self discipline, you're going to feel better about yourself. And then you're going to be able to like serve others more from that place. And so, yeah, that was a really big catalyst for me as well.
Oh, do you know what? That is so good. The fact that, you said earlier on about somebody is praying for you. So it's about, if people aren't seeing you and don't know and haven't heard your story, that, yeah, like, that they're probably thinking, oh my gosh, finally someone out there has been through something similar,
Yeah.
gets it, and then also that's a great point shared. But then for you to just say about the reminder of somebody sort of stopping you in your tracks and reminding you of who you are, is something that I'm sure you do quite regularly, and it's something that I advocate for quite
Mm.
openly. Is sometimes we just need that somebody to be accountable to, or to be our support tool of giving us the self-belief, like giving us that belief, like, oh, you've given me the belief I can actually do this.
That's it. Yeah. And people around us are either speaking life or death into us. When you have like such an encouraging community like your Run Free Collective, and then you have that community of people that keep encouraging you, then that negative talk that's in your mind, then they begin to be speaking life and encouragement and hope in you, which gives you that resilience, that drive to then have that higher expectation of yourself. Because a lot of the time we we are actually always falling to the expectation of the people around us and how they see us. Right. So if we don't, even men, when they're in relationship, if they've got a partner who's always speaking you know, you don't do this, you're not enough. Like, then a man will drop to that. Whereas if a woman is speaking life and encouraging his good traits, he's going to live into it. And there's a lot of science behind this too, right? So, what people expect consciously or unconsciously around us, then we adapt to that behavior. And so sometimes that means needing to get into an environment where somebody expects more of you. That's why mentorship's so good, because that mentor will expect more of you, and then you're going to naturally rise to that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said about just seeing different levels, like say your potential, being around people that probably, again, I think it comes back to perspective, seeing something maybe in you that you didn't see in yourself. And I think, you know, we're very good at it as humans, and I definitely say that it's something that I battle with even today, is just the imposter syndrome, or maybe looking at ourselves and going, maybe I'm not quite out for this. Maybe that's my limit, and there's no further potential. Obviously, I mean, look again. I want to go into this because I think this is going to be great. You've spoken about, look, you help people build, you know, 6, 7 figure businesses. You've done 8 figures. Like I say, you never thought that was possible, right? You know, you where you'd come from, and sort of the. So what allowed that to happen, do you feel? Where did that all start to come to light? When did it? Yeah, I'd just love to hear about that.
Yeah, it like I built this multi 8 figure property development brand by 22, but the journey started like 19 years old, and not even being able to get out of bed, right? Like I felt quite depressed at that point. I was having a lot of these struggles. I couldn't really get out of bed. I didn't feel a lot of purpose. I was trying to figure it all out. And then my dad put a desk in the corner of the room and was like, here, like, figure yourself out. And here's a bit of a purpose. See if it works for you. And so he gave me the phone book and I started cold calling. And I guess at that point, like, I had nothing to lose because, like, I already felt really terrible, right? So the rejection didn't even, like, I was cold calling, getting so much rejection. I called every single builder, only one met with me. And when they did meet with me, all they had to say was like negative things about the property development. But I guess it was like, I remember seeing on the front page of the newspaper, it was like the forgotten suburb. And this suburb felt forgotten and it felt lost and I was like, well, that's a little bit how I feel. So I was like, I felt this fight, this ambition. I felt that burden on my heart. And then I just started going for it. Like I obviously had something to prove because I felt forgotten, so I wanted to prove myself. But I think at the end of the day, like business is all about caring about your client or that customer more than anybody else does. Find the gap in the market because most people are in it for money. So if you have the eyes to see and then you are the niche, find the gap in the market that like nobody else is serving in the way that that is. And so for me, I decided to build a property development that gave people good mental well-being, that connected their neighbors. The very problems I was struggling with, I decided, well, what if I built the community that would help with all of those different problems? So we started doing, for every block sold, we raised money for mental health awareness in Australia. We started to do settlement parties where we introduced each neighbor to each other. I researched everything about mental illness I was struggling with and decided to build a community that fixed all those problems so other people didn't have to go through them. You know, the social awkwardness, like I built community partner parties, I connected like everybody there. And we created parks that improved their mental health and intergenerational learning. And so it was because I wasn't in it for money. I never set out like, let's build a multi 8 figure company. You know, most companies take 7 to 14 years. We did it in 3 years, literally because it was about serving. It was about serving. Like I gave everything to it. I did work 12-hour days, 6 days a week, but nobody had ever seen that. Like everybody else in property development were gray haired men. When you call somebody up, oh, I want to do a property, like, here's the price list, goodbye. I was like, what if, like, what would I really want? What would be a 6 star? And I started to imagine not what is everybody else doing, but like, what would be the Australian dream here? And so that's when I just designed this 6 star customer journey. We had a 50 to 80% conversion rate. I gave people helicopter flights over their block of land. And so they were going up in a helicopter, similar to Richard Branson, like just be outrageous, right? And
Yeah.
so I gave them just gave them helicopter flights flying over their block of land before they, but it was like I was bringing these feminine qualities in, care, generosity, heart, service. When you make things really about that, again, God will see that. I believe God sees your heart behind your business more than anything. What you do in private is going to always create the public promotion. So if you are led by these Christian values, I believe, and you're building a business off that, then I believe like you're going to see the fruits of that as well. And so it turned into a multi-8-figure brand in just a few years.
Wow. And do you know what? I love this, and it's so refreshing to hear, Samantha. Like, I am so glad that you reached out to be on this show, because the human element, right? A lot of what I've gathered and gained from this episode, and I hope the guys listening sort of feel this as well, is that you've clearly stated, look, okay, we all need money, yeah. Obviously, I'm not just building this dream for it to be small. I want it to be big, but I'm all in it to serve. I'm serving first. I'm giving to myself to give to others. It's human. I want them to have an experience that they will never, ever forget. You're living that Australian dream, and you said you want to impact the world, and obviously you're on that, and you've believed that since 14 years old. But then, I think for you to share that at 19, you was just again, I don't think people realize how hard that was in that time for you. I mean, I'm feeling it, the pain of 19, depressed. Your dad just again drops in a bit of a opportunity. Here's a desk, and you're cold calling. I mean, I can't even imagine people cold calling today.
No.
That rejection, or just don't want to communicate, don't want to talk, just want to isolate, just want it handed to them. But you did that, and you beat the statistics. You changed the norm, and you've created something that has allowed people to feel, I guess, they belong. They're part of something that's exciting.
Yeah. And, like if you're somebody listening and you felt quite misunderstood, you felt different, you felt like a little bit of an outcast, like all the things that have been judged, rejected, misunderstood about you are the reasons that you will succeed. They are the things. And so what's been attacked the most is your greatest asset. It is your superpower. You just have to start asking yourself, how is this my superpower? Like I had to ask myself, how is my sensitivity my superpower? How is my care my superpower? How is my superpower? I had to stop saying like there's something wrong with me, even with the autistic ADHD stuff. It's like the thing that you think disqualifies you is the very thing that qualifies you. You've just got to start asking God, how do you want to use this? How do I use this, right? Like a sensitive dad, a sensitive mom, like they're teaching their children how to be in touch with their emotions and how to trust themselves, and then how to be a great leader, right? But it's like that same daughter or son might have grown up being like, can't you just harden up? Can't you just, you know what I mean? But then they go on, if they start to see that as a strength, they go on to channel it, use it for good. And so I just say, like, a lot of people that are attracted to listening to my podcast and stuff, a lot of the time they've felt quite rejected and they've felt quite misunderstood. And it's just because if you're listening, you are called to a different path. One day it will make more sense, but you just have to keep believing that you matter, you belong here. You need to find more people that are like you and be around people where you're not a burden as well. Like if I'm around the wrong people, then I could start to feel insecure, right? But when I'm around the right people, when I'm focused on the right career path, like I can't be in a job. Like if I'm in a job, I will be not a good person. But when I'm entrepreneurial, when I'm doing a million things all at once, I've got energy. But put me in a job and I'm depressed. So if you're in a job and you're like, I'm depressed, what's wrong? It's like, well, there's nothing wrong with you, but like you need to come into alignment.
Yeah, there's so much there, so much sort of feeling of, I think, isolation, where people probably feel that they can't be who they are. Obviously you're very in tune with your awareness and your feelings, and you sort of know that, okay, I'm in this room, I feel myself. I'm in that room. Something doesn't feel right. And I think there'll be
Yeah.
a lot of people as well, even listening today, going, I feel that every day. When I go into my job, or I go into my 9 till 5. That's how I feel once I open that door. I dread to go in because I already know so and so is going to probably ask me to do something I really don't want to do. But I keep doing it anyway. You know, what
Right?
what would you what would you say to them if that's
I
how
would
they
say
feel?
I would say go on a retreat. Like once I went on a silent retreat. I went on a silent retreat to Nepal, and I just sat in silence for 10 days, right?
Oh
But like,
my
I don't know,
gosh!
yeah, it was crazy, right? But like,
Whoa!
go on a retreat, go somewhere where you can start to get connected to your spirit and listen. And the thing is that this path of going away from, like, read up on the hero's journey, like Google the hero's journey, learn about that, and then go on a retreat. Because the thing is that, like, the fear is like, that's comfortable. The fear is change. The fear is the discomfort. But the truth is that as soon as you listen more to your spirit's going to give you guidance, but it's only going to be one piece. You're not going to see the whole thing, but you're going to have one piece of guidance, and you've just got to learn to trust that a little bit. Learn to trust that, and getting out of your head and getting out of your logic, and get, like, just build that muscle of faith. There's a beautiful scripture that says walk by faith, not by sight. And so I think it's not something that it's like, okay, like, I've got this faith and now I'm going to change my whole life and be really impulsive. It's not about that. It's just like opening yourself up to it, silencing the world so that you can hear more. And when you do hear more, just take one little step, see how it went. Oh, I practiced faith. It worked out pretty good. And then, like, do it again and again. And then that faith muscle gets strengthened through the journey.
Yeah, that's so good. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think just being able to lean into. I mean, it's again, book a retreat or do something. Put yourself in a different environment. I have honestly heard this quite a lot of times actually on the show, where someone's been somewhere that they probably thought, because obviously retreats, people go, oh, woo woo, spiritual, whatever. I mean, you might go into your spiritual side, you might not, but going on a retreat where you're ultimately working on yourself and putting yourself in a different environment, I think that's where a lot comes up, doesn't it? A lot of clarity, maybe some signals and messages that have been in there of becoming more clearer. So it gives you that more, I guess, confidence to say, you know what? I'm going to just take action now. I'm going to do this. What am I waiting for? I've been holding back, but I now know, because I'm around you guys and you've all given me a boost because you're believing in me. I'm going to
Mm.
do it.
Yeah, I'm going to do it. That's it.
I, yeah, I just think it's good, but I love this. And, obviously we are getting towards the end of the episode, Samantha. I think obviously we could have gone down so many different more avenues, especially with your story and actually your empire that you're building, right? And you're still on that path. Just wanted to sort of ask, with where you are now in your sort of life and business, what are you focusing on at the moment? What's sort of something that you're wanting to give back to the world?
I think, like, personally, I'm very much focused on reading the Bible at the moment and learning what it means to be a woman of God. I think from my 20s to 30s, I definitely was lost a little bit, like, trying to figure out the woman that I wanted to be. And so I feel like the Bible is like, it's the truth. It guides me in the right direction. It was like 18 months ago, I was meant to represent Australia as Miss Australia. And then just before I was going to be representing Australia with that, I got saved by Jesus. And I really feel like that was a pivotal moment, because it was like, I'm not defined by my appearance or by fame or status or by those different things. And I think that in today's world, there's so many different messages out there. So personally, I'm really trying to focus on the Bible, understand what it means to be a woman of God, and, like, develop that character more and more. In my business, it's very much about, I believe, like, in the developed world, we're so resourced. We have so many resources, contacts, networks, skills, and opportunities. Whereas women that are in developing countries, they don't have that. And so I feel like, as somebody who's, like, obviously quite privileged because I'm living in Australia, I just feel like it's like I feel like I really want to bridge the developed and developing worlds. So I think about how can I think about child sex trafficking, access to high income skills, and be the type of woman that's building influence for like impact, not vanity. So what we're really trying to do at the moment is to really educate as many different women in the developing countries as we can, so that they aren't defined by where they live either, which is a big part of my story. I just think that it's like $100, $25 can literally change somebody's life over there. So my biggest initiative at the moment is like, I want to try to mobilize $1 billion for good in my whole lifetime. And we're trying to do that by helping entrepreneurs to build purposeful, profitable companies and then align their companies with the UN Sustainable Development Goal initiatives.
Oh my, that is so good. That is so good. But the fact that the small bits, right, the small giving back really makes a difference. That impact over vanity, I think that's something that
Yeah.
I love that. When you said that, that sort of hit, that hit hard. And I think, the way that you sort of being able to give people the opportunity to scale, to grow, to be able to build what they've always wanted to build. I think, like you just said earlier on, people are praying for you, and you're obviously that person that a lot of people are going to want to be around, basically of the work that you're doing.
Mm. Yeah, it's exciting because I'm about to turn 34 too, so I want to be able to have a family in the future. I just saw that you've got, is it your second child that's just come?
Yeah. Well, I'm 33 this year, so yeah, I'm
Oh,
dad of two. Yeah, it's mad. Yeah.
that's so exciting. Yeah, so I'm excited to get into that phase, but I love watching people online like yourself, like having a family, and I'm excited for
Yeah,
when
you
that
will.
phase. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it's I mean, just to not take away from your episode, but yeah, it definitely changes a lot of things. I mean, I know people say it and they say, oh, it makes you think differently. But in terms of how you operate as an entrepreneur and give into your family and just the little things, like even after this episode that we're recording right now, I'll have breakfast with both of them. And well, I've got a newborn, she won't have breakfast, she has milk. But then we go, we're going to go and take a football, right? I mean, I don't know if it's soccer in Australia, but yeah, it's like just go and do that. And it's just being able, it's the transition of like pro mode, business mode to daddy mode. It's like that's so hard. It's so hard, but it's so rewarding because it shows what you are capable of as a
Yeah.
human, to be able to go from sort of this focus, hyper focus, to then, oh, now I've got to go in this silly mode, and just be silly. And it's it's so good, but it's so hard as well.
I love that. Oh, that's
Yeah,
so
it
good.
is. Yeah, it is good. But look, obviously, I've got two more questions. It's a question I ask every guest, and I'd love to hear your perspective. What what would you say mastering your life means to you, Samantha?
Ooh, that's that's a good one. It's a deep question to land on. Um, oh, that's really funny. The first thing that's actually coming to mind for me is actually to have fun. Yeah, to not take life so seriously. I'm a really deep person, but I think that at the end of the day, like, yeah, you've got to allow like to have fun. Yeah, and I
Do you
feel
know what
like,
that?
yeah.
No, keep going. That's good. I like it.
Yeah, I don't think like I often in this episode I've spoken a lot about big purpose, but truly the purpose is to truly bring ourselves out into the world, to be our true self. That's our purpose, and that's when we're going to feel the most alive and have the most fun. And like I just saw your face light up when you were talking about being a dad, and I was like, he's so on purpose. Like, and it's like to let ourselves have fun, and that's why I'm so excited to be a mom, because I just feel like
Mm.
children are the best reminders of that true purpose, and I think what it means to have mastered life, like curious, childlike wonder, not taking ourselves too seriously.
Yeah, totally get that. Oh, well, do you know what? I think that in itself is so powerful. Have fun, just smile, be a bit silly. That definitely brings that inner child. I'll definitely give you that one. But look, it's been amazing. It's been amazing to have you on the show. Just if anyone wants to connect with you, Samantha, or have a conversation, maybe follow your
Yeah.
work, following your journey from all over the world, right? Where's the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, so probably go over to my Instagram, the Illuminator Movement, and follow me over there. And I've got some different events. I've got some books as well. You can just DM me the word book. I'll give you a free copy of all of my best-selling books as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, we'll make sure we put that in the show notes. We'll put your links in there as well. So any other links you want to share with us, Samantha, please just send them over via email. We'll make sure that they get in there so people can just find you whenever they find you, coming onto this episode. But final thing from me, I just want to say, obviously from the other side of the world, and you're in Australia, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been so much fun.